Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
What do you think about analytics, Mike?
I'm a fan.
Yeah? You like being statistically
analytically
correct?
speaking, you should be a fan of analytics.
Yeah. Imagine being the person making an argument against data.
Data deniers.
Welcome back to SportsBall for episode 80. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by Tampa Bay sports superfan. It's Mike Maharrey. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I figured you're doing pretty good because your town is potentially going to enjoy another championship.
I know. Possibly.
Now that we've said that, it's 4-0 sweep Dodgers. It's over.
No, I don't think it'll be a 4-0 sweep.
Well, what do you think it'll be?
I think it's going to be a good series, to be honest with you. So, just some numbers.
Okay.
You actually ended up with the two best teams in the very short regular season ending up in the World Series. So, you had the Dodgers were 43-17. If you extend that out over the normal season, they would have won 116 games.
Oh,
if they had been on that clip. But the Rays were no slouch. They won 40 games, and both teams are building off last year. Now, here's what I think is. I think the pressure is on LA because I think everybody perceives the Rays as kind of the underdog.
mm-hmm.
You know, they're the second lowest payroll team to ever be in the World Series.
Wow.
And the first lowest payroll team to ever be in the World Series was the Tampa Bay Rays in 2008.
There seems like there's a theme there of Tampa Bay not wanting to pay anyone.
All right. Well, I mean, it's just a small market team. They don't have a lot of money, but they do a lot with what they have. And speaking of analytics, they are a team that uses analytics to the hilt. And that innovation has been a lot of what has made them successful. And, you know, they were one of the first teams to start messing with the shifts. And that's all analytics. You know, it's looking at where the baseball is going to be hit by a given hitter. They use analytics very heavily with their pitchers. And interestingly, the LA Dodgers general manager is from the Rays organization. So he's brought a little bit of that to the Dodgers. So what do I think? I think it'll go 7 games, to be honest with you. And I kind of feel like the Dodgers will probably, I don't know. I'm going to say the Dodgers are going to win because they're the favorites, but I think the pressure is on the Dodgers because this is their third World Series in 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And they have not won one yet. So a little pressure there. And I think the Rays, you know, everybody's like, oh, well, they made it. So, you know, not a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the lineups, if you go 1-9, I think the Dodgers are far and away the better team. I think if you go 1-30, the Rays are a better team. I think that's what's gotten the Rays here is their depth. And so here are the keys that I think that both teams need to make. For LA to win this series, they need to get on top of the Rays quick. The Rays have an ability to lock you down in, you know, if they're ahead at inning 6, they very rarely lose the game. And so I think it's important for the Dodgers to get quick early leads and keep the Rays on their heels. I think the Rays bullpen pitching is probably one of their strong suits, and they can, you know, they're the kind of team they can bring in a pitcher for an inning and then bring in another pitcher for an inning and then bring in another pitcher for an inning. The Dodgers, I think their advantage is they have hot bats. They led the majors in scoring and home runs in the regular season, and that has been an issue for the Rays. So looking at what the Rays need to do, they need to get some of their bats hot. Somebody besides Randy Arozarena. Have you heard about this dude?
I have.
Yeah. So get this. He's a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
He actually came over in a trade from the St. Louis Cardinals, and everybody kind of thought he was kind of the throw-in. You know, they get this Arozarena guy. And he actually missed the early part of the season. He was out for a bit with COVID. But in the postseason, he's already set a record for scoring home runs in the regular season. He had 7 home runs in the playoffs so far with one series left to go. He's batting .375. He has 11 extra base hits. That's a Rays single season record. He has 21 hits. Was one shy of Derek Jeter's 1996 showing for the most rookies in postseason history. So that kid is hot. But after him, the Rays are batting under 200. So
yeah,
that's less than ideal. And that's really been their MO all season. They're not a good hitting team. They rely on pitching and defense. So somebody's going to have to hit the ball. Austin Meadows, Brendan Lau, those guys need to get going, or it could be a short season. So, I think it'll be good. I think both teams have things that they need to do to take control. I like the Rays pitching overall. The Dodgers have basically two starters. The Rays have three that you would really call solid starters. Problem with the Rays is they haven't been able to get their pitchers to go past about 5 innings. So, be nice to see them go a little deeper. But I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a good series if you're into watching some hard ball going around the diamond.
I think the big takeaway from the NLCS, because I was definitely on board with the Braves. I would have loved to have seen the Braves knock off the Dodgers, and they had them until they didn't. That's how. But that's
right.
That's as they play. That's why they play the.
They were up 2-1.
But I think this is going to be one of those things where, hindsight being 2020, one of two things is going to happen. Either the Dodgers coming back to knock off the Braves, that was their championship moment, and now they're going to cruise to the title. Or that demonstrated to the world that the Dodgers are not that dominant of a team, and they're going to run out of gas. One of those two things is going to happen. Now don't get me wrong, the Rays, it at first appeared might have had an easier series with the Astros, and then they let that series get as hard as it possibly could be. So you definitely could make the argument both ways. They kind of had similar CSs, but I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna be the superior Tampa Bay sports super fan this week, and I'm gonna say that the Rays are gonna win in 6, because I think the Dodgers are gonna have shot everything they've got to get over a surprisingly scrappy and very young Braves team. So look out for them for years to come. I think that their luck's gonna run out.
Here's an interesting thing about that Astros series for the Rays. They actually got outpitched and outhit in the first 2 games. What won those 2 games was their fielding. They made some just insane plays in the field. And I heard a stat, and I wish I could remember the exact numbers, but the Astros hit a surprising number of balls with the exit velocity over 90 miles an hour. And statistically speaking, if you hit a ball over 90 miles an hour coming off the bat, it's going to be a base hit. And only 3 of those ended up being base hits. That's how good the fielding was. And a lot of that had to do with those analytics. It's being in the right position and having the ball hit right to you. But, the Rays pitching, especially their starting pitching, has struggled a little bit. They're putting guys on base. They're walking people. They're getting in jams, and they're having to pitch out of the jams. And they're not really giving up a lot of runs in those early innings, but they're blowing their pitchers out with 4 or 5 innings, and then you're forced to go to the bullpen. That was particularly a problem with the Astros series, where they were playing every single night. Now they'll have breaks in this game, or in this series, so that'll help the Rays. I think will help both teams really be able to keep their bullpens fresh. So.
Well, this is going to be an analytics-heavy episode. And speaking of the analytics, if you watch the Titans remain undefeated this past weekend against the Houston Texans, which, by the way, the Texans look a lot better since showing Bill O'Brien the door. I imagine that. You first of all, you missed this ridiculous run. It's not 99 yards. It's only a pedestrian 94 yards. 6'3", 250 pounds, by the way.
Touchdown, Tennessee.
So I
like the cornerback in the background at the end of that, gasping for air.
I need to gain 40 pounds, but also run 3 times as fast.
Right.
To be Derrick Henry. But the reason why I want to bring up the Texans-Titans game, and specifically analytics, and we'll talk a little bit more about analytics as the show goes on. First of all, analytics is a fancy term for what is statistically the right thing to do.
Right.
But something that I used to always love that the Tuesday morning quarterback, Greg Easterbrook, used to write in his famous column that used to be on ESPN, is that there are certain moves that are just statistically the right answer. And you wonder, well, why don't coaches do these things? Why don't you go for it on 4th and inches basically every single time?
Right.
Why aren't you going for 2 more often? Why are you ever kicking a field goal inside the 3-yard line instead of going for a touchdown? It's statistically always better to be generally more aggressive, generally going for more things, generally going for maximum points. And the reason is that coaches have to live with the decision.
Right.
That's the only reason. Now, anyone who's looking purely at the data would say, well, if my coach isn't doing the statistically most likely thing to succeed, I want him out of there. But the reality is that traditional sports media, the talking heads, will rip coaches alive even though they statistically made the right answer when things don't work out. No, there's no analytic that says things will 100% work. If it was, everyone would do that.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm speaking specifically about Romeo Crennel, who's a defensive coordinator for the Texans, who's currently serving as the interim head coach, which, by the way, they got their first win of the year last week playing for him, and they should have won this game. Like, let's call it what it is. They should have won this game. The Titans the Titans defense has just been, for an undefeated team, and for a Titans team, by the way, the Titans are usually a play defense, control the clock, grind it out type team. All of a sudden, they're getting 500 and 600 yards of offense and winning shootouts. I don't know if that's just the way of the league or what it is. The Texans score a touchdown with only a couple minutes remaining to take a 7-point lead. They decide, are we going to go for 1 or 2? Now, the talking head in the booth is screaming, Coach Crennel, you have to kick the extra point. You have to go for 1 to make it an 8-point lead. Romeo Crennel decides to go for 2. Now, of course, we know that the Texans end up not winning the game. So no matter what Crennel did, he would be judged, right? No matter what he did, he'd be judged because they didn't win the game. But why would you go for 2 instead of 1? Well, for one, you're up 7 right now. That's a touchdown and an extra point. You should feel like you're going to win the game if you're up by 7 with 2 minutes remaining, period.
Correct.
So that's not Romeo Crennel's fault. Second, you go for 2, you are taking your fate into your own hands. Going up by 9 is a 2-possession game. If you go up by 2 possessions right here, the game is over.
It's over.
It's over. I mean, it would require a busted coverage, instantaneous touchdown followed by onside kick and instantaneous score. The game's over. Unless you're playing the Falcons, the game is over.
Right.
So he's challenging, and what's more too, just purely from a like coaching standpoint, he's challenging his team to win the game.
That's right.
As opposed to hoping to not lose. And I can't say enough how important that is. Of course, obviously, they're not able to convert the 2. It remains a 7-point game. The Titans go down the field. They score the tying touchdown, by the way, with only 4 seconds remaining. So it's still almost played out, even though they kind of let the Titans go down the field. But the point being is the Titans won the coin toss. The Texans never saw the ball again. Now, there are talking heads in the sports world saying, aha, the Texans lost. That just goes to show Romeo Crennel made the wrong move. But wait a minute. In a scenario where the Titans get the ball, score, win the coin toss, get the ball, score, meaning the Texans never get the ball again, meaning the Texans never have their fate in their own hands, that's exactly why you go for 2. Right. That's exactly why you go for 2, is so that you're trying to make the game's decision understood. It's a 2-possession game. The game is over. It's such a shame that sports media and fans will be mad when their coach does this, because your coach should always be doing the statistically most likely thing to succeed. Probably my 2 biggest pet peeves in the world are, one, playing prevent when there's still tons of time left. Right. And we see teams do that every week. Buffalo Bills, exactly right. And 2, not going for the win when you have the ball and all the momentum and your fate completely in your hand. Just because this didn't work out doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision.
Right. Well, and think about going forward. Let's say that they had kicked the extra point, so they're up 8. Titans run down the field, score the touchdown. you've got Derrick Henry in the backfield. I like their odds of being able to get the 2 to tie the game back up. So really, you're in the
Yes.
same scenario anyway.
So the final play of the game, of course, the Titans won the coin toss in NFL overtime rules. If the first team to score a touchdown will win, because if
Right.
you kick a field goal, the other team gets a possession, but a touchdown or a safety ends the game. Well, the last play of the game was 3rd down and goal from the 5.
Mhm.
Now, it's interesting to say, if the Titans had not converted, would Vrabel have been an aggressive coach and gone for the win, or would he have kicked a chippy field goal we don't know.
Right.
But from 3rd down and goal from the 5, a lot of teams wouldn't run the ball. You think you're a little bit too far outside, you're against a goal line package. A lot of teams are thinking, I need to stretch the field, and I need to give my quarterback maybe a run pass option. Not if you're the Tennessee Titans. They send Ryan Tannehill out wide at wide receiver. They direct snap Wildcat to Derrick Henry, which, by the way, if you remember last year's Ravens-Titans playoff game, Derrick Henry has a jump pass touchdown on his resume.
I do remember that.
So the Texans doing, the right thing. The Texans actually looked like a well-coached defense. They actually dropped their man into coverage to guard against the crossing pattern for the jump pass. That was the right move, because they've seen on tape Derrick Henry can throw the ball. But the problem is that if Derrick Henry bounces it outside and he gets ahead of steam towards the goal line within a few yards, you better have 3 Ray Lewises lined up. Otherwise, he's going in the end zone. He's going in, and that's exactly what happened. So to your point, the fact that the Titans have Derrick Henry, which, by the way, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 receptions for 54. If you've got that guy on the other side of the line of scrimmage coming at you from within a few yards of the goal line, yes, that's why you needed to have your fate in your own hands. That's exactly why.
I wish I had lived in Yulee when he was playing at Yulee High School.
For one of our off-season episodes, we're just going to play the YouTube highlights, his recruitment video before he went to Alabama. It's scary because, of course, obviously, look, there's plenty of big kids that play high school football. I'm 5'10", so there were plenty of kids in high school taller than me. Right. But generally speaking, and especially in small towns, a kid that's 6'2", 6'3" is going to be amongst the biggest kids on your team, unless you're talking about the basketball team. And those kids are tall, not big. Derrick Henry, in almost every game he played, was the biggest guy on the field. That's including linebackers, linemen, safety, defensive line. He's the biggest guy on the field. Sometimes and from what I understand, in his senior year, I think they just gave up on QB play and just started snapping him the ball. This guy ran for something like 15,000 yards.
I know, it's crazy.
But anyway, the point being is, they made the right decision. I think if you're Romeo Crennel, you should make that decision again, which, by the way, the Texans had just gone straight down the field. The Texans had just scored a touchdown relatively easily, and on their final touchdown score, it was from like 2nd and goal from the 2. So they literally just needed to convert that exact play one more time, and they win the game. And you have Deshaun Watson. Right. And they threw it over the middle, and it had a chance. The point being is that I'm amazed at how much the talking heads are ready to crucify the interim head coach for narrowly losing a game against an undefeated team when you're 1-5 versus applauding them for going for the win. If you're 1-5, your season's all but over, right? Why would you not just go for it?
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like this whole episode is just turning into why we hate the traditional sports media.
Fair enough.
With that said, I want to talk one more thing about analytics before we move on. Point differential. The name of today's episode is What's the Point? And this is why. We're going to talk a little bit about point differential. The thing about point differential, and specifically we're talking about the NFL standings through the first 6-7 weeks, is that point differential is not necessarily, wins and losses is what matters, right? Point differential is not necessarily what matters. However, for people out there that like to place bets, for people out there that are trying to predict what's going to happen in the next several weeks, point differential can tell you who the deceptively good teams are, the teams whose records may not be the best, but they're winning. When they win, they win, and when they lose, they narrowly lose. And so they're probably a decent team versus the teams that might be deceptively bad. Teams whose records are good right now, but they're winning by the hair of their chinny chin chins against subpar competition. We're going to start in the NFC and look at the point differentials. By the way, the very first thing that'll jump out at you, every team in the NFC East has a firm negative point differential. I know you're shocked.
I am.
And every team in the NFC West has a positive point differential.
Yeah.
So how about that? So we're going to start in the NFC East. By some miracle, the Dallas Cowboys still lead the NFC East at 2-4 with a negative 45 point differential.
Yikes.
The Philadelphia Eagles only have a negative 34 point differential, but they're at 1-4 with the one tie. However, if you just look at that snapshot and nothing else, you can sort of see the writing on the wall that this division is the Eagles' division to win.
Mm-hmm.
Look, everybody knows Dak is out for the year. There's no reason to think that unless the Cowboys sign a veteran free agent, and we'll get to that in a little bit, there's no reason to believe that the Cowboys can hold on to the division lead, especially when they have probably the second worst defense in football outside of the New York Jets. They've given up 218 points on the season already. Looking purely at point differential, that's the Eagles' division to win. But so skip down here to you look at the NFC North. Of course, the Bears and the Packers are technically tied. They're both one loss apiece, 5-1 versus 4-1. But you look at that point differential. The Bears are 5-1, but they're only plus 12 in point differential. That's a team who, when they lost, it was embarrassing, and when they've won by the skin of their chin every single.
Yes.
That is a team that is, and if anyone has seen the Nick Foles-led Bears struggling to move up and down the field, that is a team primed for a loss.
Correct.
You look at the Green Bay Packers. Now, they're coming off of a really bad loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And despite that, they still have a plus 23 point difference. So having just lost a game, what was it, 38-10?
38-10. Mm-hmm.
They just lost a game 38-10, and they still have a better differential than the Bears.
Yeah.
So the Packers are pretty clearly, probably, almost for sure, the better team in that division. They just yet to play their games.
Right.
Interesting enough, look at those Detroit Lions. A negative 10 point differential. Obviously, you don't want a negative point differential at all, but it's only negative 10. They're 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
The point being is their season's not over. That is not a team whose season is over.
Mm-hmm.
Now you skip down to the NFC South. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have a plus 55 point differential, which, by the way, Mike Maharrey, that's the best in the NFC.
How about that?
But they've lost 2 games.
Yeah.
Funny how it works that you can have already lost 2 games on the year, but have the best point differential in the NFC. You know what that means to me, Mike Maharrey?
What does that mean to you?
What it means is they're not currently leading the NFC, but they might be one of the best teams in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
So that the loss to the Bears is really haunting for the Buccaneers because that dropped them to 4.
That was a bad game.
That dropped them to 2 losses on the year, and it was a really bad game. But if you look purely at points scored and points against, they are certainly in the running for the number 1 seed. They're 2 games behind Seattle, which is a shame because again, they're comfortably winning when they win, and when they lose, it's kind of disastrous turnovers, pick 6 by old man Brady.
147 yards and penalties against the Bears.
Yeah, yikes on that one. Now you compare them against the Saints, which by the way, they already one of their losses against the Saints. The Saints are 3-2, so this is a division that's still totally up in the air, and yet the Saints are only plus 3 in point difference. Again, the Buccaneers should be for sure a playoff team, but they just can't keep on losing ugly games because the data would lead you to believe they're far and away better than the Bears and far and away better than the Saints. But one more ugly loss and they could lose the division.
Yeah.
So skip down one more time. NFC West. So first of all, every team in the NFC West has a plus point differential. Now, the bottom of the division is the San Francisco 49ers at 3-3, which, by the way, I did not predict that. I'll happily admit I did not predict the 49ers would be last place in the West 6 weeks into the season.
Yeah. But how could you predict that everybody on the team would be on the injured list? Yeah,
exactly so. But let's go look at the top. Seattle's 5-0. So they right now are in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in the NFC. They have a plus 34 point differential. It's certainly not bad, but for a team that's 5-0, that's slim. Versus the very next team in their division, the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
Are plus 54, only 1 point behind the Bucs for best point differential. Look at that. They're also 4-2. So again, point differential can belie a team that is deceptively good, even though they have a couple of ugly losses, versus teams that are maybe deceptively bad, like the Chicago Bears up there,
Right.
or the New Orleans Saints. So we're going to take a quick look at the AFC. So first of all, you look at the AFC West, which is just a yikes division, except for the Super Bowl champions. The Baltimore Ravens have a plus 75 point differential at this point in the year, but they're only third or fourth in the AFC. Actually, well, no, so they would be fourth in the AFC right now because they have a head-to-head loss to Kansas City, and the Steelers and Titans are both undefeated. So they're only fourth, the number 4 seed right now in pure wins losses with that amazing point differential. So you look at the Steelers at plus 62, they're undefeated. I mean, yeah, they have a few points less than the Ravens, but plus 62 is great, and they're undefeated. Now you compare that to the Tennessee Titans, who are also undefeated, only plus 38. So you're kind of back around to those Seattle Seahawks back there at plus 34 undefeated, Titans plus 38 undefeated. Obviously, you'd rather be undefeated than have 2 ugly losses.
Of course.
But a team that's plus 38, and by the way, some of those Titans wins are against a 1-win Texans, at the time winless Vikings, against the Broncos, against the Jaguars, who have gone on to only have 1 win up to this point in the season. So they have 4 one possession victories against teams who are combined like 3-15 on the year. So with each passing week, we still don't know if the Titans are legit. You look at the Indianapolis Colts in their own AFC South. They're 4-2, but have a point differential of plus 42. Yeah. Am I saying the Colts are better than the Titans? I'm not. What I'm saying is that if the Colts could avoid ugly losses, the Colts could be a playoff team.
Right.
But if they can't, they'll have really gaudy stats and be sitting at home. AFC North, Steelers and Ravens both look like playoff caliber teams. I mean, at this point, I'd probably pretty safely say they'll both be playoff teams, and especially the point difference.
Right.
Now let's take a quick look at the AFC East. Now we just got word. You were the one that broke this for me.
I did.
Our boy Fitzmagic has been benched. It is Tua time in Miami.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yes. That's why everyone calls him Tua. Exactly right. Ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills are on a 2-game losing streak and have a negative 12-point differential.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins are only 1 game back in the East and have a plus 47-point differential. Now, have the Dolphins benefited by playing some bad teams, a la having just whooped the Jets? Yes, that is true. However, if you also remember, just a week before, they had a blowout win over the 49ers. So it's not been all bad teams. And 2 of the Dolphins' 3 losses are a 1-possession game to the undefeated Seahawks and a 3-point game to their in-division Bills, who they play again late in the year. It seems weird to me that the Dolphins would be benching a veteran starter who, by the way, in case you were wondering, Fitzmagic is number 7 right now in the league in QBR.
Wow.
So he is a top 7 QB of a 3-3 team who is 1 game out of the division lead and a plus 47-point differential. The only way that makes sense to me is they're getting ready to trade him. Either they're making a terrible mistake or they're getting ready to trade him. But either way, I still wouldn't agree with making a move on him right now because, as I said, they're a game out of the lead. This is a potential playoff team we're talking about. This isn't a fluke. The Miami Dolphins are actually a decent team. So I guess the moral of the story here for all the point differential talk is some teams have a very poor negative point differential, and it's because they're bad. I'm looking at you, Jacksonville Jaguars. Or New York Jets, by the way, negative 110 point differential.
That's bad.
However, what's always interesting to me is the deceptively bad teams. Think Cleveland Browns at 4-2. By the way, they have the same record as your Buckaboos with their negative 24-point differential. Or the deceptively good teams, a 1-game worse Miami Dolphins at plus 47. The point being is that over the remainder of the 10 games of this year's schedule, the teams that are comfortably ahead in point differential will probably end up with winning records, and the teams that are comfortably behind in point differential will probably end up over 10 more weeks with losing records.
think that's pretty damn good analysis there, Mr. Mosley.
Or we just throw the analytics away.
Oh, yeah. We don't believe in those.
I'll tell you what I do believe in. It's time for the LP Team of the Week.
Oh, I always believe in that.
Poor Benner. I hope Dave's not watching. This week's LP Team of the Week is the Green Bay Packers. By the way,
pleases me.
When the first, well, I'm sure it does. When the first quarter ended, it was 10-0 Green Bay, and I was actually getting ready to text you to see if you had already turned off the game.
Well, I was playing hockey, so.
But I don't know. The Maharrey I know would have turned off the game at the end of the first quarter.
Probably.
Except for Tampa Bay goes on to score 38 unanswered points in a 38-10 trouncing of Green Bay. By the way, Aaron Rodgers was 16 of 35 for $160 and 2 picks. One of them being a pick six.
Yep.
Holy. Wow. Aaron, I guess Aaron Rodgers is our LP candidate of the week. Quarterbacking the LP team of the week.
Yeah, I think that was only the second time he's ever thrown a pick six.
I think so. Well, that was his first interception of the year, and then to prove it was no fluke, he immediately threw another one. Yeah. Did that game surprise you?
It did surprise me. What really surprised me was that the defense played that well.
Yes.
Even missing Vita Vea, who I thought might cause problems in the middle, stopping the run. I think the Packers had maybe 96 yards, so they were under 100 yards rushing, even with Vea out. And they pressured. I think they sacked. Rodgers 4 times and maybe 11 knockdowns. He spent a lot of time on his butt.
Yes, he did. I'd also point out, a lot of people are talking about, is this the return of Gronkowski? Now, he was out of football. First of all, Rob Gronkowski was never exactly the most in-shape player, even in his prime. He's a big boy. But a lot of people have pointed out that he was out of football for a while, and he might just now be getting back into playing shape. And surprise, surprise, he winds up on the stat sheet after the first several weeks of the season really being a non-factor.
Yeah.
This could be a combination of Green Bay started to shift their defense away from Gronk, thinking he wasn't a legit threat. And it may be a combination of Gronk just getting back into shape. But again, we just got done looking at that big point differential sheet. If Gronkowski comes back into form and the Buccaneers defense plays half as good as they just did against a previously undefeated Green Bay team, that's a lot better team than 4-2.
Already broken.
Uh-oh.
He's got a bad right shoulder. That was if you saw his touchdown, he spiked the ball not very well with his left hand. And the reason that he did that instead of doing his traditional right hand monster spike is that he is having shoulder problems. So, that dude has had his list of injuries. He's like blown discs in his back 3 times, and he's blown out his knee. He's had a lot of wear and tear on him over the course of his career. So the question is, he might be coming into form and getting football shape back. But the other question is can he last 10 more games?
This is very true. I just had to look this up just because we were talking about it earlier in the show. Did you know that Gronkowski has only about 8 pounds and 3 inches on Derrick Henry? But Derrick Henry is basically lightning compared to Rob Gronkowski moving down the field.
I tell you what, that's one thing Gronk. I mean, he was never a burner, but he's looked even slower this
he has.
Coming back. He's not fast.
He has, but apparently to the Green Bay Packers secondary, he's just undefendable, as Troy Aikman would say.
Oh, I thought that was Beasley that was undefendable.
Well, yeah, as Troy Aikman would say. Yeah.
Yes.
So speaking of that, it's time for some announcers say. We'll go ahead and start there. I didn't even have that one on my list. Troy Aikman said that Cole Beasley is unguardable, which is weird because the Bills went on to get scorched. For having a wide receiver that can't be guarded, it's a sad thing that they lost. I'm also going to go with Kevin Harlan, Denver versus New England, who said, "I'm trying to fist you, but I go bang."
Oh, you should never say that.
You should never say that on national television.
No.
Speaking of things you shouldn't say, Chris Collinsworth, he's a powerhouse from the waist down.
Oh.
Joe Buck says...
Of course, Chris was drunk.
Well, I mean, Joe Buck says getting poked in the eye really makes it hard to see.
That's not wrong. That checks out.
And a lot of people are throwing shade at Joe Buck and Troy Aikman for being caught on a hot mic this past week. As they pointed out, they're still doing the fighter jet flyovers of the stadiums, even for the stadiums that don't have any fans in them. And Troy Aikman says that's a lot of jet fuel just to do a little flyover. And Joe Buck said that's your hard-earned money and your tax dollars at work. And people are actually attacking Troy Aikman and Joe Buck for being unpatriotic. Where's the lie, though?
Right?
First of all, where's the lie even when the stadium's full? And second of all, where's the lie when there's no fans there? No one can see the Jets. The only people that hear them are the players and the announcers.
Yeah.
And they're still doing the flyovers. I actually didn't think about that until they brought it up. Yeah, they're still doing flyovers at empty stadiums. Yikes.
Mm.
Speaking of yikes, it's time to get our solemn faces on. It's time for In Memoriam. Remember a player, a team, a coach, whoever whose sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike Maharrey, who are you remembering this week?
I'm going to remember the Houston Astros, whose quest to win the American League fell one game short. And thank God, because who would have wanted to listen to all that? Oh, see, we could win even when we don't cheat. Now you're still cheaters. Now you're cheaters at home. So
Yikes.
Enjoy your vacation, Astros.
I'm glad how you're a forgiving person.
Yes.
I'm remembering a combination of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets as well as anyone else who thought they could win the Heisman this year whose name isn't Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much in the cards that Trevor Lawrence, barring a catastrophic injury, this is a Heisman / #1 pick in the draft season for Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
He was only a pedestrian 24 of 32 for 404 yards and 5 touchdowns in only playing one half against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I've always been the person that, look, honestly, I obviously understand why you set your players down and don't let them take unnecessary abuse, whether you're way ahead or way behind. With that said, the record wonk in me is thinking, man, I just call a Hail Mary every play if I'm Trevor Lawrence. I'd play 4 quarters and I'd call a Hail Mary every play. I want to see, first of all, go for 100. If you end the first half with 54 points, I want to go for 100. Yeah. And second of all, if I have 404 yards, might as well go for 800.
Yeah, but that would be running up the score.
I know, running up the score. Fun fact: Clemson did score. The Georgia Tech couldn't be the LP team of the week because Clemson scored first. Georgia Tech actually scored just a minute and 20 seconds later to tie the game at 7.
Yeah.
With 6 minutes and 32 seconds remaining in the first quarter, you thought the game wasn't over. Boy, were you wrong.
Yeah, it's a lot of tiger paws after that.
A lot of tiger paws after that. Before we do our pick 'em, I just want to say really quick, there's a few conferences rejoining the college football landscape this week. The Big Ten showing up to play, and got my shirt on. Mountain West is coming back to play. Boise State plays their first game this weekend.
Who are they playing?
They're playing Utah State.
Okay.
But the only reason I don't have them in the pick'em and I haven't talked about them yet is I'm a little bit raw that some of the traditional powerhouse teams got to start the season with a ranking, even though they either A, finished last season unranked in some cases, and B, weren't even scheduled to play any games. Yet Boise State is starting the season unranked when, let's face it, they're the heavy favorite to win the Mountain West, but they're not ranked. I'm going to call foul on that, but you know me. We're going to start with number 18 Michigan versus number 21 Minnesota. I don't know where your friend Marburger is, but Michigan is playing. Now, I don't know if this is last year's Minnesota or not, but Minnesota is getting the nod. They're going to start the season ranked 21st. They had a really good year last year.
They did.
Does that carry over into this season, or are the Wolverines going to go into Minnesota and win?
Well, this is hard. I would never put any money on this game because you have no idea what you're getting at this point. But my gut is we're going to see a little bit of a drop-off in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think most people consider last year to be the fluke rather than the new rule.
You're going to have to show me.
Yeah, Exactly. With that said, I'm actually going to go with Minnesota in this first game of the year. They're playing at home. They're getting to start in familiar territory. They're bringing back most of their starting offense and defense. And I'm actually going to say the opposite. While we're sitting here judging whether or not Minnesota is going to show us something, I think Michigan's only ranked in the teens because they're Michigan. Come on. Michigan was not a great team last year. They had a couple of yikes losses against the better divisional opponents last year, and if that was any team other than Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten coming off the season they came off of, there's no way they'd start the season ranked in the teens. Especially, by the way, starting in the COVID season where a bunch of other teams already have games.
Right.
I'm
still gonna go Michigan.
All right.
So we'll agree to disagree on this.
All right. Then, going to the NFL, we have the San Francisco 49ers and New England Patriots. The 49ers are at 3-3, but coming off of a really big divisional win over the Rams versus the New England Patriots. Mike Maharrey, for the first time in, I forget how many years it was. It might be for the first time in his New England tenure, but definitely for the first time in over 10, 15 years. The New England Patriots have a losing record after 5.
Yeah. I'm going to go Niners on this game. I think the 49ers figured out something last week in terms of kind of pulling things together with the roster that they now have. Given that half of their team is in the hospital. But I liked what I saw out of the 49ers. I think Garoppolo looked a lot better. I think the week before he was really favoring that ankle. So I'm gonna go Niners on this. I think the Niners are a better team than their record indicates, even with the injury situation they're dealing with.
So the season is not over for either of these teams after 5 to 6 weeks. San Francisco is in last place in the NFC West, but they're 3-3. I mean, that's not a bad record, and
they have a positive point differential.
And they have a positive point, and they're coming off a huge win. Now the Patriots, on the other hand, having the losing record after 5. Being a half a game behind the Dolphins and being a couple of games behind the Bills. Now, they still have a bunch of division games. Again, the season's far from over. However, not only am I going to go with Niners, but I'm also going to say I've never been a big Cam Newton guy. And frankly, after all the off-season hype of Cam coming into New England, this is going to be another career renaissance. That's what Bill Belichick is wont to do with big-time free agents. Frankly, the Patriots look exactly like a Cam Newton quarterback team, which is mediocre.
This is not your Tom Brady Patriots.
It is really not. Then we've got probably the game of the week. The undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers are traveling to Nashville to play the undefeated Tennessee Titans. Winner's going to be in the driver's seat in the race for the AFC #1 seed. Who do you have?
Well, just to show you that I was paying attention during our discussion on analytics.
Yep.
I'm going to go the Steelers on this one.
I'm glad you were paying attention because I'm actually heavy Steelers. I actually consider this to be not a close pick this week. This is what I'm not going to say this is a safe pick because that would be disrespectful to a Titans team that is 5-0. You can't just be lucky and be 5-0.
Sure.
You can be some lucky, but you have to be some good to be 5-0. With that said, I'm actually going to say this is a moderately easy pick to say Steelers. I will give one caveat. Now, the Steelers are going to be the best team the Titans have played so far, and the Steelers have a really good defense this year. The Steelers are averaging they've had, every single game this year, they've had at least 3 sacks and 1 interception. So this is far and away going to be the best, and particularly also a good run defense. I think this is going to be a team that is definitely going to do the mantra of, if you're going to stack the box, that you can't stack the box and Henry still get $105 yards.
Right.
If you're going to stack the box, he better have under 60 yards. And we've all heard the meme of the Titans are undefeated in the Henry era when he goes over 100 yards.
Right.
I think the Steelers are a talented enough team to stack this box, and that means Henry is genuinely good in the game. Can Tannehill then win the game? But the Steelers also are getting a pick every game in the secondary. With that point differential and with that defense, and also, by the way, with a handful of the Titans' wins being really yikes last-second kicks and scores against teams with between 0 and 1 win on the year, Steelers. With that said, if the Titans, I will say this, I'm going with Steelers. If the Titans figure out a way to accidentally win this game too, then hell, Super Bowl. Might as well be on the hype train all the way.
Yeah.
We're gonna to end the show this week and for picks, we're gonna do a little UFC talk. It's this Saturday is the lightweight title is on the line. Khabib Nurmagomedov at 28-0 taking on the challenger, who I believe also technically has the interim title, is Justin Gaethje. Now, we've talked about Khabib a little bit on the show in years past. You might remember when the legendary Khabib versus Conor McGregor fight was coming up. You might remember it was yours truly that said, that's not a fight. Khabib's going to destroy Conor, and anyone that's betting money on Conor because he's popular is just getting ready to write me a check. And that's exactly what happened.
It is what happened.
Now, Justin Gaethje's not Conor McGregor. He's not a flashy striker the way Conor is, though he does absolutely has power in his hands. But he also has a very strong wrestling base, which is something you almost have to have any chance against Khabib, because he's just a suffocating Sambo practitioner.
Right.
I think this might be Khabib's last biggest chance to lose a fight in his 28-0 current record. I think this might be his last greatest, and I say last because I think Khabib has said on a number of occasions he's not going to fight until he's old. With the untimely death of his father just in the last year, I think his plan was always to just have a few more fights and then retire at a relatively young age. I think he's also gunning for kind of a legacy fight against the retired George St. Pierre. That would be almost more like a fun exhibition, really, than a serious fight. I think he wants to cash in and hit the hay, which, I mean, can we blame somebody that's going for 30-0 to say, no, you should have to fight until you lose? With that said, while I think this is Khabib's biggest chance to lose, I don't see it. I can never bet against a guy who's 28-0 until he proves us otherwise.
I'm not going to bet against a guy named Nurmagomedov.
Nurma, like, hey, Nurma go, and Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov. There you go. Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Well, I'm going Khabib.
I'm going Khabib too. So when Gaethje is the lightweight title holder after this weekend, we'll never have another fan watch the show.
Well, I'll just say that I was going along with Alan because I don't know anything about UFC. So,
well, all you really need to know in that particular fight is there's probably going to be a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling. Your casual fans, that's not the type of fight a lot of casual fans like. They like to see roundhouse kicks. They want to see someone running off the cage and doing a Superman punch and all that. You know what? That's not real fighting. I mean, it is real fighting, but a dominant fighter like Khabib doesn't get to 28-0 by throwing haymakers.
Right.
He gets there by putting his hands on you, putting you on the mat, and you saying, "No, sir, I would like. I don't want to
do this.
I don't want to do this anymore." So I'm going to go Khabib. Do you have a final thought?
I do have a final thought. A little Tampa Bay superfan final thought for you. Wrap your head around this. Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup champions. Tampa Bay Rays in the World Series. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-2 on top of the NFC South. And the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the Final Four of the MLS Soccer Championship, which is the second tier of MLS. But Tampa Bay, sports championship city, baby.
It could happen. I'll tell you what, though, I actually did not even realize this until somebody brought it up last night. Everyone's talking about Tampa Bay and how they could have a second championship this year. You realize there's going to be a city with 2 championships this year, no matter who wins.
That is correct.
They're the LA Dodgers,
That's
and
right. You've got
the Lakers already won.
Lakers. That's right.
I don't know why I didn't know that. I'm just completely airheaded, I guess, or I just care that little about the NBA.
Right.
I actually did have a final thought, and now
I had a final thought. What are you dissing my final thought?
No, and I'm not.
Good final thought. You said, I even have a final thought. Like my final thought was just chopped liver or something.
No, your final thought was great. I'm just saying that I also had a final thought, but now I'm struggling to find the statistic I wanted to cite because I closed the window and I don't have it up anymore. So I'm rushing to find it. And the only reason I'm saying is because I want to get it right and have
Would you like me to fill space while you're searching for
fill space for 15 more seconds? Oh, never mind, found it. I don't need you anymore.
Good.
Here it
I don't
is.
have any space to fill.
Now I've gone on record many a time saying the Mike McCarthy hire as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys was an absolute disaster hire.
In fact, I remember very specifically when the hire happened, you saying that. So this is not something that you're just coming up with.
No, this is not fair weather sports talk right here. How is this for a stat? Mike McCarthy, this is his first season. The Cowboys have trailed by 17 or more points at the half 3 times in their 4 home games under Mike McCarthy. Under Jason Garrett, they only trailed by that many points 4 times in 76 home games.
Yikes.
By the way, I don't mean that to come off as that I'm defending Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's a terrible head coach.
Well, yeah, we all do that.
By the way. He's a terrible head coach. But no, I am anti Jason Garrett, but I'm even more anti Coach McCarthy. He's got to go. With that said, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Love me.
You have been listening to SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.